with the midday news. A special welcome if you are watching on onespotmedia.com. I remind as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1, followed by the word Spot and Media. With the date for the by-elections in 3 constituencies to be announced on Sunday, the Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, says it's now in a state of readiness. However, it's still awaiting the $80 million needed to cover the cost of the elections. Director of Elections, Orit Fisher, says this will not significantly hamper the final stage of preparations, as the EOJ needs about 30% of the funds requested for upfront expenses.
Having been aware of the vacancies, we have done all that we are able to in terms of identifying workers, the trainers, what we would need in terms of goods services. We are in the process of identifying suppliers and everything. So we would be in an advanced state of readiness and should be able to proceed smoothly should the elections be announced.
The by-elections will be held in St. Mary's South East and St. Andrews South West and St. Andrew South. With the recent spotlight on the Office of Political Ombudsman, a long-standing debate about its relevance has been reignited. There are calls once again for the office to be either shut down or merged with another. However, there are some who still maintain that the office is relevant and should be empowered, not shut down. Here's TVJ's Giovanni Dennis with that story.
Member of Parliament Everald Warmington moving a motion for the Office of the Political Ombudsman to be closed.
Why should we be spending $18.6 million for an office that all it does in the last election was to say to take down those flags that we have displayed in different communities, but yet all the flags still standing? Pronouncements were made about statement made by a particular candidate against another candidate or what have you. And then one candidate say, I'm not withdrawing the statement I made. The Ombudsman say, well, then I withdraw my demands to you.
Now, 5 years later, on September 26, 2017, Justice Minister Delroy Chuck argues that the Office of the Political Ombudsman should be subsumed by the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, ECJ. He says both major political parties now have a strong and good relationship.
The role of the political ombudsman has really diminished, and to be quite frank, it's no longer relevant.
But some opposition members disagree. Here's Julian Robinson, for instance.
If the Labour Party doesn't believe it is relevant, then it must indicate whether it will abide by the Political Code of Conduct, which has a number of specific clauses. And if it doesn't believe it's relevant, then it must indicate what it wants to replace it. But do I believe there's a need for a body? Absolutely. Do I think the Ombudsman needs to be empowered so that he or she can impose sanctions? Yes, I do.
We could examine the question of whether we want to give it greater powers, but most of all, what it needs is the political leadership of the country to show due respect for the office.
Speaking on TVJ's All Angles Wednesday night, attorney at law and director at Citizens Action for Free and Fair Elections Cafe, Nancy Anderson, argued that the Office of the Ombudsman still has a place in the political landscape in Jamaica.
We need to have some kind of organization, whatever it is. If we're going to make changes to the Act, that's a possible suggestion. And it's something that the public could be more involved in. It is something that was passed long ago, and I think we all agree, in a different climate, different political climate. So we need to look today, but I still think that we need somewhere where people can say, investigate the politicians.
She accepts that the Office of the Political Ombudsman needs more teeth, but says to do away with it because of financial reasons is not a good approach. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
If the Caribbean is hurt, tourism is hurt. The words of Tourism Minister Ed Bartlett as he reflected on the trail of destruction left by Hurricanes Irma and Maria throughout the Caribbean. The details from TVJ's O'Shane Masters.
The minister was addressing the opening of the Jamaica Product Exchange JPEX 2017 and the Jamaica Convention Center in St. James. He noted that more than 54% of revenue generated in the Caribbean is derived from tourism. Several Caribbean countries are still reeling from the devastation Hurricanes Irma and Maria left behind. Minister Bartlett says a working team will be established to look at developing and mobilizing support for the region.
A plan of action will be crafted. Site visits will be done. And when we meet in Jamaica for the World Conference on Job Creation and Inclusive Growth here at the Convention Center in Montego Bay, November 27 to 29, we will kick off the action plan for the restoration of the tourism sector.
Minister Bartlett also asked for a minute of silence for the close to 300 persons, he said, who lost their lives between Mexico, the Caribbean, and the United States during Hurricanes Irma and Maria. In the meantime, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who also addressed the opening of Jamaica's business-to-business trade show, highlighted the increase in tourist arrivals this year. He said for the first 8 months of 2017, there was a 6.9% increase in stopover arrivals compared to the corresponding period last year. Cruise passenger arrivals also went up by 5.1% for the period January to August.
From a total of 2,828,261 visitors in that 8-month period, Jamaica earned $1.98 billion, or 8.3% more in gross foreign exchange earnings than the $1.83 billion earned last year over the same period.
Shane Masters, TVJ News.
President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Dennis Morrison, has voiced concern about the hundreds of outstanding transcripts and records being awaited, which have prevented the commencement of cases. He made a complaint earlier this week at the opening ceremony for the start of the Michaelmas term. Justice Morrison complained that there are 346 outstanding records in civil appeals and 342 outstanding transcripts in criminal appeals. This has resulted in the cases being counted as part of the court's backlog. He noted that the Chief Justice and the Permanent Secretary in the Justice Ministry are aware of the situation and commitments have been made for the matter to be addressed. Another firearm has been taken off the streets by members of the security force. The police stopped a Toyota Altis motor car in which 2 men were travelling during a spot check along the Goshen Main Road in St. Elizabeth this morning. After a search by the police, a Springfield 9mm handgun with 19 rounds of ammunition were seized. The car was also seized by the lawmen. Both men, who are said to be from Montego Bay, are now in police custody. 5 persons, including 2 children, are now homeless following a fire in Pleasant Hill, Portland, Thursday afternoon. About 3:30, fire was seen coming from a section of the 2-bedroom house, which rapidly engulfed the property before anything could be saved. No one was in the house at the time of the fire.
Well, when the fire started, I was at work, and by the time I came here, everything was on fire already. Nothing didn't get to save, because at the time of discovery, the fire was in an exhaust state already, so no one didn't get to save anything.
When we hear a voice say, buyer, and when we look across east side, me look, it's fire from the whole entire back of the house. And I run to the side to see if I could try to help him to save anything like that. But when I entered to the front, I saw that it was a big fire all.
The fire brigade was then alerted. The family is now seeking assistance to replace the children's school materials, which were destroyed.
To redeem everything now is really hectic at the moment.
What kind of assistance would you like if it offered to you?
More like for the kids, you know. It's just the kids is the main focus and concern.
1 man is dead and 5 others injured following including a child following a motor vehicle accident in St. Anne. TVJ News understands that on Wednesday evening, a bus transporting passengers from Brownstown to Ocherius in St. Anne hit an embankment and overturned along the Runaway Bay main road. In the meantime, while assisting passengers of the bus, a motorcyclist along with a pillion rider were hurriedly making their way through the incident when they were signaled to stop by the police. The police ordered the rider of the bike to hand over his key, but he refused and sped off, leaving the pillion rider behind. Upon entering the highway and approaching Discovery Bay, the motorcyclist attempted to overtake a truck that was making a left turn. The bike crashed into the truck and the rider was flung from the bike and his leg severed. He, along with the passengers of the overturned bus, were taken to the St. Anne's Bay Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. His identity is still unknown. However, passengers of the bus were assessed and their injuries were determined not to be life-threatening. The family of the world's oldest woman, Mrs. Violet Moss Brown, who died recently, will donate her body to the University of the West Indies Hospital for research. With the details, here is TVJ's Athalia Reynolds-Baker.
Mrs. Moss Brown of Duanvale, Trelawney became the world's oldest person on April 15 at 117 years and 38 days, taking the title from Italian Emma Morano. Known as Aunt V to her family and friends, she was born on March 10, 1900 and lived in the same house in Trelawney all her life. She was a mother of 6 and a great-grandmother several times over. Mrs. Moss Brown's family called a press conference on Thursday at Glistening Waters in Trelawney. The funeral service for Mrs. Moss Brown will be held on Saturday, October 7 at the Prittonville Baptist Church. Viewing of the body will take place from 9 to 11 a.m., after which the service will begin. Her body will then be donated to the University Hospital.
One of her wishes was if they can, it's something that you can put, you don't want to see something go down into the ground, which won't be having any use to anybody. So if we can, her soul is gone to heaven, that's what she said, and if we can find some cure from what left of it, that is what she would like. So she's up to it 100%.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister's office is yet to say officially if the government will participate in the funeral arrangements or if the supercentenarian will be accorded an official funeral.
Email was sent to the Prime Minister's office and then I was told to send it to his executive secretary. So that was done. So at least there's movement in, you know.
How long ago was this?
The email was sent last week and I heard that I needed, because you know it's hard to maneuver to find the right people to make the connections and so on. So finally, when I did make the connection, I was told I need to send it to the executive assistant, and so she should have that already. So I think we should hear something soon.
Mrs. Moss Brown died on Friday, September 15 at the Fairview Medical Center in Montego Bay, St. James. Mrs. Moss Brown was snatched from the Duanvale home and taken to the medical center. Mrs. Moss Brown was snatched from the Duanvale home and taken to the medical center. Most family members had no idea where she was. She died 6 days later. Athalia Reynolds-Baker, TVJ News.
The Caribbean Maritime Institute officially became the Caribbean Maritime University on Thursday. This makes the CMU Jamaica's first maritime university. The university's executive director, Professor Fritz Pinnock, says the change positions the CMU for greater opportunities.
Which means more job opportunities will be available for them, and maybe jobs even at a higher level.
Well, in fact, we have already had the accreditation, but it's now the matter that there's a lot in branding. So it's a bigger part. It opens new opportunity for us for international grant funding. Yeah. So, you know, there are monies available for universities, not available for institute and colleges. Absolutely. So it puts us in another level of the market.
Ghanaian Jolor Bosso Adamte I has been named as the CMU's first chancellor. Time now for our Fact or Fiction feature. Fact or Fiction, the Kendal train crash happened on January 1, 1920. We'll tell you the answer at the end of the sports segment of the newscast. In news overseas, thousands of people have been evacuated on the Indonesian island of Bali and on Ambae Island as 2 volcanoes threaten to erupt. The entire population of Ambae is being moved from the path of the increasingly active Manaro volcano. More than 144,000 people have been taken to shelters as authorities warn that Mount Agung in the island's north could erupt at any time. Both volcanoes sit on the Pacific Ring of Fire, which is an area of intense seismic activity that stretches 40,000 kilometers from New Zealand to South America to the north, China and Japan. Most of the island's 11,000 residents are being taken away by boat, but some are also being airlifted to evacuation centers on neighboring islands. And further afield, at least 22 people have been killed and 35 injured in a stampede at a train station Friday morning during the rush hour in India's financial hub, Mumbai. We go to the CNN for more.
We want to go back to India for a second. We had breaking news earlier in the show from Mumbai. Well, we now have an update. Here's the video. This footage from our affiliate in India, CNN News 18. It shows the crowd on the platform. An official says it happened on a narrow stairway after an unexpected rain shower as people climbed over railings to avoid the crush. Police are adding that 35 people were injured and the victims were rushed to local hospitals.
In sports, the senior Sunshine Girls will now have new footwear at least for a 6-month period, courtesy of Mizuno UK. Mizuno UK showed interest in the Jamaica senior netball team and personalized each sneaker specifically for the respective positions. Netball Jamaica President Dr. Paula Daly-Morris told TVJ Sports that a long-term agreement will only be made if the players agree to wear the brand. If only a few individuals are comfortable with the footwear, those players will be signed as individual brand ambassadors. Nonetheless, both Daly-Morris and interim co-head coach Sasha Gay Henry were delighted with the new deal.
To be successful in the game, just to play the game, we have to supply them with footwear very often, frequently. They will go through a pair of sneakers within 3 months because of the kinds of intensity that they play. So we're happy that Mizuno UK has come forward in support of the Sunshine Girls, and they have sent us sufficient sneakers to cover the needs of the Sunshine Girls.
I mean, it's very important for the girls to have proper footwear in terms of improving on their skills and also to lessen the chance of any form of injury.
Sunshine Girls are now in preparation for the Fast 5 Championships that will be held in Australia from October 28 to 29.
A challenge sometimes basically because we were preparing for 2 tournaments and the tournaments are actually different, but now the focus has shifted because the Caribbean tournament has cancelled, so it's full gear preparing for Fast 5 going forward.
The Caribbean Championships that were set for October have been cancelled due to the hurricanes that have affected the Caribbean. And finally this afternoon, the answer to our Fact or Fiction feature. We asked Fact or Fiction. The Kendal train crash happened on January 1, 1920. On Sunday, September 1, 1957, members of the St. Anne's Roman Catholic Church went to Montego Bay for an excursion. Also on board were other persons who were not part of the excursion. In all, there were 1,600 passengers. Each car originally could hold up to 12 persons, but on this day, they had 80. Around 11:30 p.m., on the train's return leg, the train picked up speed and derailed. Close to 200 persons lost their lives and 700 were injured. The cause of the accident was later determined to be the accidental closure of an angled wheel brake that had been placed incorrectly. And that's Midday News. Milton Walker joined us at 7 for Primetime News on behalf of the news, sports and production teams. Good afternoon.